Okay, so welcome everybody. I'm anyone that's joining us here in Zoom or on our stream. We appreciate you being here today. Hopefully, we can deliver some high value for you in terms of understanding our pricing and pricing for profit, not leaving money on the table. All right. So today I'm going to be going through sort of your starter level all the way up to what we would consider advanced. Again, I want you guys to really keep in mind a lot of our pricing issues, a lot of the issues in our problem all began with, how we see our numbers and what we prioritize in terms of pricing and a lot of the limiting beliefs that come with pricing our jobs, right? So let's address the first thing. Most contractors believe the only way to win more jobs is to lower their price. Okay, I see this quite frequently. But that's obviously the exact thing that's holding our business back. All right. So, I can't reiterate it enough. We do not win this game by volume, especially when we're starting out. We win this game by focusing on delivering high profit, high value projects. All right. And a lot of what gets in our way is the thing between our ears. All right. So, out of curiosity, anybody here or on the stream, who here has ever dropped their price just to win a job? Give me a yes in the chat. You've had to drop your price to win a job. Okay. I think we've all been there at one point or another. And again, it can become chronic over time. And depending on, how well you've set yourself up and more importantly, how quickly you learn, all it takes is dropping your price 10%. Okay, so dropping your price 10% to have to work 33% harder, 33% more in order to make up for that loss in profit. Okay. So again, most of us aren't thinking that way. We're thinking about getting the job. And generally it comes out of a place of scarcity, right? Where we don't have quite enough leads, we don't have enough opportunity. We feel, that we need the work. Or flat out, we just don't know our numbers. And, I've had guys brag to me about, winning all these low profit jobs. And really what that ends up being is more stress and less money sitting at the end of the table, right? So here's what happens when you want to play that game. All right. So when we lower our price or lower our margin or don't charge enough to begin with, all right, we're left with no profit at the end of the job. All right. We attract the wrong clients and burnout and no growth. Okay. So I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that the worst clients that we encounter, the D level clients, the ones that give us the most headaches, the most aggravating, all right, tend to be the same ones that want you to discount prices. Okay. They're the same ones that, beat you up on your numbers and work with you unfairly. All right. Now, if you work within that group of people, guess who they refer, right? Even if you manage to get their job done, right? They refer more D-level customers. All right. So our objective here is to first of all know your number, understand your pricing, and move yourself towards working with higher value customers. All right. And a high value customer doesn't mind paying for the value you can offer. Okay. And there tend to be the ones that those jobs move smoothly. So again, I challenge everybody that's listening in, think about the best customer that you've ever worked with. What were the characteristics of that customer? Right? Did they pay their bills on time? Were they, fun and easy to work with? Were you profitable? All right. Now imagine having every day filled with customers like that. Okay.
Love
So
it.
I always like to share a quick story with you. I've been working with a contractor here in Toronto. All right. Very much in this mindset. He was a general contractor, always busy. I mean, again, totally burnt out. Hadn't been home for dinner with his family in more than 4 months. Had all these big projects going on from the outside. All right, busy. Everything, would you would think that he's making money, and in reality, he was not. All right, so you can imagine he's working 70, 80 hours a week. All right, running around. And when we looked at it, and when we looked really carefully, one interesting thing started to happen is that he was first of all in a network where there was a lot of negotiation back and forth on pricing, and he was working for a lot of general contractors as well, which was problematic. But he had a chronic problem of when he didn't think he was going to get a job, almost immediately offering discounts. So his margins started off in a survivable place, about 20% net profit on jobs. And, by the time he was sort of finishing discounting, we would find him, in the 1 to 2% range on his margins. So, and I noticed this because when we looked at his estimates, the estimates never matched the invoices. They weren't, and what I came to find out was this chronic, discounting, okay, and lowering his price to win the work, okay. So what changed for
Understandable.
him? The first thing was, understanding that for that statement I've already made. What exactly does it mean when we give a discount? What does it exactly mean when we, don't fight to maintain margins or let margins erode on jobs? Okay. And it's quite simple, right? If you don't have profit, you can't operate your business for very long. You're basically robbing Peter to pay Tom. So profit's not a bad word. Okay. And most of us should ultimately hold the responsibility very, very close to our heart, is that as a CEO, your responsibility to your company is to produce a profit for the shareholder. Okay, that's it. All right. So if we don't start our jobs based on the profit that our company needs to earn, all right, and knowing our numbers is how we get to that conclusion. All right. So I would say that nobody here should be working for anything under a 20% net profit. Okay. Or else why bother? Right? The volume of work that you're going to have to do, all the risk you're going to have to take to earn, basically, if you're in, under $1 million, you're not even, you're not even covering your risk with that kind of margin. So what we have to do again is really start to work backwards with this plan. We have to determine, first of all, what it is that will give us, get us to our next stage in business. So again, if we're looking at running a business that operates without us, all right, $1 million, it's possible, all right, if you can find yourself in very high margin work, okay, but most of us, again, around that $2 million mark, things really are able to take off. And the first place of starting, all right, and I'm going to give you the actual steps and the, where you need to have your first aha moment, all right, is knowing your numbers, okay? Knowing your number and knowing your numbers and the reason for what you're charging, all right, allows you to be confident when you're making sales. Okay, it allows you to also know if somebody is undercharging or underpricing you, all right, then and winning the jobs, all right, then you don't really have to be too concerned about that. All right, because they didn't actually earn a profit, or they won't be around very long to compete with you, right? The other thing too is just understanding that good customers, high value customers, all right, are going to allow you a good quality company to earn a margin. All right, they're going to allow those things. In fact, sometimes when we come in and discount and we give a low price, we lose the job because they don't trust the lower price. We lose the job because they don't trust us or our confidence. And again, nothing says that I'm overcharging than giving steep discounts, 10 or 15%. Immediately the client is going to think, hey, you know what? If he can drop that quickly, 10 or 15%, what else can I get? Right? And it tells them that, you had overcharged them in the first place. So we want to avoid that. Okay. We want to set profit targets. I can't stress this enough, how many people are out there just every day taking on this big burden of running a contracting business without having a target, without having a goal set in terms of what they should earn for all of this hard work. And what ends up happening is very simple, complacency, all right, or focusing on the wrong things at the wrong time. And that keeps us genuinely stuck, all right. Um, the third thing is we want to reverse engineer our pricing. All right. So focusing on profit first, understanding that, hey, if I have a sales target of $1 million with a 20% net margin, all right, that I'm going to retain $200,000. Okay. That's what should be in the bank free and clear. All right. Before taxes, right? If I could do that, all right, most of us, and pay myself a salary and cover all the expenses of my business overhead, have my bills paid up on time. All right, it's pretty easy to reverse engineer that. All right, working backwards and knowing where your numbers should be. right? At the end of the day, we have labor, material, and other costs. All right. Adding your margin onto that and knowing why you're charging what you're charging, all right, is going to help you to actually hit those targets. Okay. And we also got to remember, guys, if you're going in and selling on price, all right, you're selling on price, you're going to find people that are price sensitive. Okay. Because that's the only thing that you're offering. That's the only thing that you are presenting to a client is price. Okay, I see this a lot. And again, most people don't even know what the value is that their business can offer, right? I hear things like, I do good quality work. I hear that all the time. And I'm sure everyone here has said the same, right? I'm sure no one's gone into someone's home and said, hey, I do mediocre work, like semi-par, good enough, right? Now imagine if somebody's getting three quotes and three contractors show up, sound the same, look the same, all bargain on price. What do you think you're telling the customer to choose on? Right? Are we choosing on price or are we choosing on value? Of course we're choosing on price because everyone looks the same, sounds the same, right? We have no choice but to make a decision from a price point of view. Okay? Now, contrary to that, building value can be improving your sales process, improving your presentation, improving, the way you present your offers, improving the marketing, the people you're getting in front of. All right. All of those things lead to being able to charge more or charge a better margin. Okay. And most of this stuff, guys, all right, if you're trying to do this without knowing your numbers, near impossible. You have no direction at all. You have no idea what's working and what's not working. Okay, and this is a big, big core problem with the entire market is that most of us, we got into the trades because we weren't amazing at school, and we weren't particular great at math, right? For some of us, right? And we didn't get into business to be a numbers cruncher, right? But there's a fine line and there's a certain type of, looking at your numbers that all contractors need to learn and be able to do. And it's simply if you want to be in business, you have a responsibility, all right? And the first responsibility doesn't have to be difficult, doesn't have to be hard, all right? But you need to intimately understand those numbers. You need to be, willing to put yourself in a uncomfortable zone sometimes and face those numbers and not rely on bookkeepers and accountants, all right, that are going to report your income to the government at the end of the year. All right. Those aren't the people that you need to trust. Right. And even our regulatory accounting system, which is like our QuickBooks. All right. Very hard to get a clear picture from that. All right. Because it's looking at things that have already happened in the past. Okay. So again, you know, not offering discounts. All right. Sticking to your price and your margins and learning to work through sales objections, learning to, have yourself in front of the right customers. Because once you find, that sweet spot where you're able to sell to high value customers consistently, all right, a lot of the problems that most contractors face when they're first starting, all right, they dissipate, they go away, and they're replaced by a whole set of new problems, right? But step one, always, let's know our numbers. If you're just starting out, all right, we want to make sure that we have goals. We have a set profit goal, not a revenue goal. Okay. Profit before revenue. I don't care how much revenue you're doing. I've seen many companies 10 million, 12 million plus aren't making a dime. Okay. I've been one of those myself. It's not a pleasant place to be. Lots of risk with no reward. Okay. Making sure that we understand what value is and how to sell it. Okay. That's a big opportunity for everybody, and learning not to provide discounts, not to lower your number or lower your value. Okay. So what happened with our client when we started to implement some of these changes? So when we simply turned his quoting around to a good, better, best sales system and gave options of good, better, best, where we could lower the quality of the project if the customer insisted. By the way, not too often do they go with just good. All right. And present a better value, present a better offer. All right. We immediately seen that they weren't even asking for discounts. Okay. And they were putting themselves in that better category where we could maximize our margin. So right there in the middle, it's an interesting statistic, but when you offer good, better, best, About 10% of the time you're going to sell good, 80% of the time you're going to sell better, and 10% of the time you're going to sell the best. Okay. Now that's a simple strategy that we've been able to implement, and then additional, add-ons. So really thinking about how you're presenting the offer, how easily you're making it for a customer to say yes. All right. What their journey looks like is going to ultimately lead to you being able to charge more, all right, for your services. Okay. People these days want speed and convenience, all right? And that has a big factor in how much profit you are able to accumulate and how many jobs you're able to sell, right? So who here thinks that they could raise their price 10% today? Maybe give me a one in the chat. Who here thinks that they could easily raise their price 10% today? Who has the courage to do that? Yes. Okay. All right. So for anybody that's on this call, all right, how many of you guys right now have a backlog more than 60 days? Is there anybody here that has a backlog more than 60 days? Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's think about this as a simple supply and demand formula. Okay. So if I know that there is no way that I'm charging less in a tough economy, tough market where I have to price competitively, I'm still not going to do that for a loss. All right. Or else you may as well go get a job.
On this
Okay.
side. You
Um,
roll to
well, I'm not going to do that working on a loss, because that at that point we're putting the whole company in danger. One second. Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my, no-go zone of anything under 20% margin. That's about as low as you can go as a contracting business before you start sucking air and start losing money. Okay. Now, if we have a backlog, let's say we sell the first quarter out, right? We are able to get 60 or 90 days of backlog. All right. Is it make sense to keep our price at the same rate? No, absolutely not. All right. We should actually be raising our margins to slow down the demand. All right. To bring the demand in under control. All right. The other factor we want to work off of is our closing ratios, right? And most of you guys probably don't monitor those. Therefore, you don't know when to pull the levers. Okay. And what I'm going to show you today is what levers and at what point do we pull them. Okay. Because it's numbers, it's data. And if we're looking at data, especially visual data, it's going to indicate to us what we need to do at that moment, right? So again, a lot of us, I would say the majority of the contractors we encounter and work with, over 99%, in fact, don't actually have a clear picture of their financials or don't know how to use their financials as a tool, all right, and see it more of a burden, right? See it more as a secondary thought. So we're going to talk about and actually look at how we can use this information to run a really successful business and not, navigate through this blindly. Okay, so again, I want to address some quick wins with you guys today. All right. The first thing that I see that almost every contractor can immediately benefit from is labor burden. All right. What does it actually cost you per hour for every employee that you have in the field? Okay. Including yourself, by the way. You have some burden that comes to your company. You should be knowing that numbers very specifically, right? And adding in all the actual costs of having somebody in the field. More often than not, we're unclear of this. And even if you're off 10%, okay, those are big profit leaks. Those are big problems in terms of knowing our numbers. Okay. The second quick win, guys, most of us can immediately raise our price 10, maybe even 20%, depending on your backlog, right? 5% for sure. Everybody could right now without even affecting the amount of sales we're bringing in. Okay. Especially that 5 to 10 rate, almost all of us could do and add that, and it's not going to have a major impact on the outcome of the sales. All right. You'll find that your numbers, your sales, the ones that you were making, okay, they already bought you. All right. They already bought into you, and 10% more doesn't really affect that decision. Okay. The last quick win here, if you are offering discounts, remove discounts, okay, and value ladder, right? So again, maintaining your margin, you can offer somebody a alternative option, all right, or three options as an offer. Okay, you're going to find that you maintain your margin or even increase it, and you do not have to offer discounts. Okay, we can adjust that scope of work as well. All right, and it's called value engineering. Again, getting people into their budget. Maybe we subtract some things to get them to where you want, but that's again an offer thing. So let's talk about, and hopefully this is going to be helpful for you. We're going to talk about a few dashboards that again allow us to kind of make some decisions from. So this is data-led data. I actually want to start with this one. So um, if we're running our business by the data, we should always have a sales target. All right. When we have a sales target, that's going to help us to establish a few things. So based on your profit goal, all right, and let's say that profit goal is $200,000, right? Means that we, on the low end, we're going to add 20% margin, okay? But maybe we want to get there quicker, all right? Maybe we see an increase in opportunities. Okay. What we're going to do first, by the way, what you're looking at here is a CEO dashboard in terms of understanding cash flow, right? Cash is king. All right. Cash has a lot to do with, how we make decisions within our business. So first thing we're looking at here, all right, how many leads do we need to get? And again, this is a statistical thing. So if I gave you 10 leads today, how many of those leads would you close? Most of us would say between 3 and 4 out of 10 on average. All right, that's a good quality number to be at. Maybe you're a little bit lower and you can adjust for that. Well, we can reverse engineer how many leads we need, all right, per month, per week, per year, all right? And by knowing that, we can make sure that we're hitting our target. Okay? So if you don't have enough opportunity in your pipeline, okay, it's very hard to hit profit goals, isn't it? All right? And we can very easily get caught up on busy work. So at the moment, this particular climate that we've been discussing, he's still way under in the amount of leads that he needed to generate. But oddly enough, because he's above average in sales, all right, at a 50%, near 50% close ratio, you can see where we started working with him, okay, just in his revenue, okay. He's been in the green almost every single month that we've worked with him. And then this is the other benefit is that we can actually track cash flow directly related to what his revenue, what he's retaining. So he's had quite a bit of debt, but at the end of the day, we can then reverse engineer how much cash we need to have in the business so everything gets paid and we're actually having real profit, to draw from and to use for our business. And quite honestly, using the profit to pay for freedom. So again, with a huge amount of debt, he's been able to actually claw his way back and be cash flow positive on every single month. Okay. So again, tracking these things pretty easy if you have the right systems in place. All right. Understanding your relationship with cash. All right. And how it means for profit. Okay. And then from that board, from this exact high level board, we can analyze and figure out where the exact problem exists, right? Most of us don't know how to actually correct the problem that we're experiencing because we don't know, what's off, or maybe we've never done it before. So again, having this information in front of us helps us to really identify where our issues are. Is there anybody that's looking at these dashboards that would be willing to unmute themselves and I'll go through them with you? Anybody here that wants to do that? Yikes. Okay. Eli, hey, are you on here? I'll just pick someone.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So let's play a little game here. All right. What's your revenue have to do with your decision making?
My revenue.
Yeah.
So if my revenue is low,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my decisions are
They get desperate, don't
critical.
they? Right? So do you potentially discount more when your revenue is low?
And initially, yes,
Okay.
but but knowing more, I've started veering away from that.
Okay. Right. So again, knowing your actual profitability on each job. All right. But I know this was an issue for you in the past and being pushed down on your number.
So what really pushed that is saying, okay, what I need, my company was starving and thinking that I need
Hmm.
other cash flow, thinking like, well,
Hmm.
any cash flow will do right now because I just need something.
Right. Right.
That's where
So
my thought pattern was coming. Like, hey, if I can get a
right.
discount, at least I'm getting something.
Right. So let's assume here something, okay? Most contractors don't even recognize this, that the decisions we made 90 days ago, all right? So let's say business was really short 90 days ago and I was in a place of scarcity. I dropped my prices, I did some silly things. That's going to show up, all right, 90 days later. And that's going to show up in two places, right? It's going to occur right here in your cash flow. Okay. Because when you start to produce those low profit projects, all right, well, you're not really generating a profit and you're risking, your actual capital in the process. All right. So again, it's against the grain, but when we're in that situation of being, low revenue, the actual thing we have to be doing is raising our prices and focusing on closing more deals. I know, crazy, right? We have to be focusing on maintaining the margin, or we're not going to get ourselves out of that position. Also, we have to look at where's the life coming from, right? Can we operate a business with no leads?
No.
No, right? And, it's an odd thing that happens when we have more opportunity around us, when we have, more chances to win deals, okay? Um, our business grows, right? Our revenue grows, provided that we're maintaining that margin, okay? So again, in looking at purely
So
data, yeah, go ahead.
if I could, so
Yep.
the one big factor that changed me not discounting more
Hmm.
is just the factor that just one big factor that basically I changed was not being the bank for customers and getting
Right.
my cash, right
Right.
when I need it. That's the biggest factor that helped me not discount my prices one more time.
Totally. Totally. So again, it's nothing worse than a customer taking a large holdback from you when you were already low priced, is there? Right? When there
Exactly.
wasn't a lot of profit to be made in the first place, is there?
Hmm.
Right? So again, what numbers do we need to look at and focus in on? One would be your conversion rate, right? So like I said, this particular client exceeds the standard that I see and was able to close at 46%, right? While maintaining his margin. So you can very quickly see he's growing his revenue, all right? His profit is going up, all right. Number of won deals has gone up, and it was actually focusing on that sales target, right? So kind of getting rid of some of the noise that was within his business and focusing in on a number he could control. Okay. Knowing what's in his pipeline for the opportunity, right? Not panicking, when there's natural, downturns in the market by maintaining that margin, all right? And again, it reflects in every area of his business by just knowing those particular numbers, okay? And then again, you know, we want to be able to ask the question, do I have a leads problem, meaning not enough opportunity? Do I have a sales problem, meaning not being able to close high value deals? All right. Or do I have a operations problem? So is profit leaking from producing the jobs? Okay. So again, all of these things absolutely critical to operating your business at a higher level. At the base level, you can do this. So if you're just starting out, all right, if you're just getting going, I know some of you guys are, all right, just knowing your profit margin after everything, what you stand to gain, okay, will give you enormous clarity and be your first aha moment in how you navigate your business. Because if you build your business on selling jobs that are not profitable and rely on high volume and a lot of effort on your half, maybe doing the work, okay? All you're doing, all you're doing is, putting yourself in a high risk employment situation, in a terrible job, right? Especially if we don't have anything to show for it. Okay. Anybody have any questions in terms of how and what kind of data they should be, considering in their business? I know you've got some businesses here at different scales, but like, talking about your KPIs, like what numbers should we be focused on? Okay.
I think I want to save some of my questions for this type of
Sure.
stuff for our one-on-one.
Yeah.
Because then you could look at our dashboard
Yeah.
individually and kind of help me piece it together, if that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, Sue, I won't pick on you directly, but this is how we prevent bad decisions, right? So
Yeah.
again, we want to be in a proactive situation, and most of us can make those decisions when we're presented with the right information. Okay?
I want
It's
to be able
it's
to leverage
really
myself so that if I want to accomplish something, I can come to the table and go, this is where we're at. This is what I want to accomplish. Here's your
right.
data.
Right. So, and again, it's the same thing when you set a goal or you set a target, that's great. Okay. That's awesome. That's the first part of it. But it's, a lot of us have goals that we've set that we've never even come close to, right? That are just in our head. But it's actually taking that goal and holding yourself accountable with the numbers, right? Holding your team accountable. This is contagious, right? So again, how do I know that there's a problem in my business? Or how do I foresee something coming? All right, if you're not tracking, if you're not at the basic level, right? This is an advanced level. Again, these are companies that are going to 5 or $10 million, and have a lot of variables to manage. Okay. And again, this is, at a high level, how, big successful companies are running their businesses, is how they're making decisions because they can actually measure impact, right? Most of us, again, like I said, you could raise your price 5 to 6% and nothing's going to change, all right, other than you've made some more money. But how would you know, if you could have raised 10% or 15%, and what is impacted by that, right? Did sales go down? All right. Am I getting more sales, less sales, or if we're just kind of, guessing at those things, right? Using our gut to manage that. Okay. What numbers do, and by knowing your numbers, what it allows us to do, again, is to remove ourselves from that, high anxiety, stressed out mindset, that fight or flight. All right. Even when things are going well, all right. I see a lot of guys sabotage themselves because they're not seeing the clear picture. Okay. They get worried. Oh my God, I've got, again, more guys, more staff, more everything. And they don't know at the core, at their base, if they're making money or not. Okay, I've been there. I think everybody at one point as a contractor has been there because most of us don't get taught this stuff, right? When and what I see as the outcome of that, and I see this all the time, is contractors start to grow, right? They get a couple of jobs ahead of themselves, and then they shut off their marketing. They shut off their sales. They go, I've got too much in my bag. I'm going to focus on producing, right? Which again, if they were to see their cash flow, all right, if they understood that relationship, they would know that, hey, listen, I'm only looking to consistently hit the same number as often as frequently as I can. All right. I need this many leads, this many sales to get to this objective. You're going to find the path of least resistance. Okay. You're going to start looking at easier opportunities rather than letting them walk by. Okay. So I'll give you another good example of how we were able to improve, our client's outcome. We focused on one thing in his sales process that changed everything. We focused on his speed to lead. That was it. We didn't change how he's presenting. We didn't even give him a better offer because, at that time, we have since then to help to grow. But like the only thing we went in and changed around for him to start to turn this all around was getting back to customers within 5 minutes, getting out and giving quotes, faster, more consistently, and using data to show him the result. That's all we needed to do. Okay. And again, you can see immediately, almost when we started working with him, we getting focused on those important things. He was able to say no to the wrong kind of work and push away those D clients that were taking up all of his time. All right. And start to focus on the clients that were ready and actively looking to buy now. Okay. Before he was taking 2 to 3 weeks to get quotes out, being stuck into with shitty clients that gave him a hard time on every job, right? Having employees that were, not efficient. All right. Once we started to show him those things were occurring, it was easy for him to make proactive and to be frank, like immediate decisions, right? That we could then measure that impact, right? So it's called stacking your wins, right? As long as you can see that, overall your business is improving and overall our business is growing, you're going to continue to do the things that are working, right? No one's here is going to see something working and then just stop doing it, are they?
No.
No, doesn't make no sense, right? So again, and not to say that everyone has to have all this, but it's nowadays, especially with software, and with everything available that's out there. I mean, knowing your numbers is easier than ever. Okay, it doesn't require an accountant, bookkeeper, any of this stuff. In fact, all right, those are the exact people that may be holding you back from making decisions. Why? Because everything they do is always behind. Okay, it's always too late to see. Your job costing, on the other hand, that's live, right? We can have a job costing board, know exactly how our jobs are going, how many budgeted hours versus actual hours. All of that stuff can be fairly immediate nowadays, right? So these are high powerful systems, and again, it puts you into a category of contractor of, I'm going to say less than 10% are capable of doing that. So if you think everyone you're competing with, 90% of the time they have no clue what their numbers are. They're just out there working as hard as they can, guessing at if they'll be successful or not. That seems pretty risky to me, don't you think?
So
And
Jay,
yeah.
so one thing, as young into my entrepreneur career, I should say,
Mhm.
path, the one thing I realized and I'm kind of steering towards is to be able to figure this out and to implement
Mhm.
certain things. You got to have systems to be able to do that, because I mean, unless you figure out, okay, well, I got to do this, this, and this to figure out that, we still need to figure out a system so we can actually execute to figure out to do that. If you are
Absolutely. I
following.
mean, again, don't don't think that like overnight you will just suddenly be able to jump on and take a high level system. We've been working with you. Like, what was the first step, right? What was the simple step that we did first? We got you at the very basic level to understand job costing, right?
Yes.
Now, this is a form of management accounting, right? The second step, all right, we got you to understand flat rate pricing and job cost codes, right?
Yep.
Right. So again, by implementing those two things, we're starting to build the foundation of how we do this consistently. Right now, just jumping into a software where you miss one of those steps, right? We don't have cost codes. We don't understand what a cost code purpose is, right? Immediately sets us up for failure in the next thing that you would need to have this software report back to you the right information, right? So then we would miss on scheduling. Okay, we wouldn't schedule properly because again, we don't have a budget for the hours. We don't have proper information to be able to analyze whether that particular type of work is making us a profit or not, right? So a lot of times, my recommendation, if you're just starting out, and this is why I started you on that, is getting the most important thing done. I don't care if it's in a spreadsheet. I don't like it's the habit that you build and your relationship to following through with that habit, right? So would you say that you're more confident now that you have a job costing system in place?
Yeah, just the fact that knowing to have that habit of going through all that,
Hmm.
and then consistency is what actually helps you out
Right.
in the end.
Right. Most people that I encounter have got their businesses up and started completely on motivation. All right. Motivation, unfortunately, guys, I hate to break it to you, like motivation, even if if you have the most energy and you're up for the task and you don't have kids and family and stuff like that, there's a limit to it. Okay. And it runs out. And most contractors end up in burnout. And really they should have got a job 10 years ago. And this is what keeps them stuck. All right, is the not knowing. That not knowing leads to fear. All right. As soon as we're in fear or as soon as we, allow anxiety to creep in, all right, that's game over. All right. Nothing new creative's happening. We're not moving the business forward. All right. And again, if we just learn to have simple habits to start out with and not get overly focused on things that don't matter yet. All right. I can't tell you how many guys that I've spoken to that have grown their businesses to $2 million and not has one iota of systems in place. All right. What are they surviving on? Right. And I would say it's equivalent to taking all of your money to the casino and betting it all on red every day. Right. So we can't rely on motivation. We have to really start to form habits. We have to form patterns and things that lead to discipline. Okay. Again, it's not an overnight transformation. So anybody on this call that thinks that, they can snap their fingers and it will be implemented, I'm here to tell you that's wrong. I would never want to, give somebody the impression that we have magic pills and silver bullets. Okay. The reality of it is to get to the next level. All right. We have to start focusing in on the habits and the things that we can do consistently. All right. That don't require motivation. All right. If we focused on those small wins, those consistent things that we can do, all right, you will see your business grow. You will get yourself unstuck. All right. But it all starts with, first of all, again, and Eli, you've done this very well, is like that concept of the job concept. Once you mastered that, all right, that gives you confidence, opens up other things that you can now focus in on, right? So we're at marketing and getting consistent sales, all right? All of those things lead to, what you actually want. But if you miss one of those steps or you refuse to learn the lesson, all right, you're doomed to repeat it over and over again, right? If you don't want to learn that lesson, if you don't want to, correct what's wrong, or you avoid it, it's just going to continue to haunt you, right? And unfortunately, that's why 93% of contractors fail, right? That we're talking about the heart of the problem here as a contractor is the refusal to lean in on these things, right? The refusal to understand them and implement habits and implement things that are done on a consistent basis. All right. So, anybody struggling with this, anybody having a hard time understanding numbers, understanding where their business is, I would love to offer you an audit today where we can look at pricing and profits, and I can help you to at least get the next 2 or 3 steps in place for how you can move your business into a data-driven business. All right, how we can really, focus in on key numbers that are going to help you to get to your goals. More than happy. I'll drop my link in the chat. If you're looking to get a audit done, want somebody to help you fundamentally understand which numbers you should be focusing on. All right. So again, what I'm going to do here for the last 5 or 10 minutes that I usually do, I will take anybody's questions, anybody's concerns. Again, I'd love to help you out if you're open to it. You can also put any questions in the chat, and I can respond there for you if you're too shy to ask anything. Lo, I don't want to be wrong. Yeah, that's a common one. So Sue, the fear of failure, all right, that's real, right? A lot of people don't want to take risks or take chances and they play small out of scarcity.
Listen, you've got me in a really good place, and I learn every time we talk.
Mm-hmm.
I hate being.
Right. Right. Well, again, here's the
Getting
crazy
better at
thing.
it.
Here's the crazy thing. All right. So Sue, you may not realize, but like with this particular client I love using as the example, had he continued to play small in his business, because he got to a place where he had overhead, he had all these costs and expenses, all right, but he constantly was not focusing on the one area that was going to get him to the next level into a safety zone. If he had watched his cash flow, all right, and the debt that he had accumulated and focused on improving that, and the only way he's going to do that was by increasing production and profitability, all right, that's the easiest way. All right, he would have continued to kind of waste his time on irrelevant things, right? And when I first talked to him, he
Yes.
thought he had, it's guys. He wanted help in his employment. And lo and behold, when we look under the hood, it's like, if you continue on this course, all right, you're going to be out of money in about 90 days. So what are you going to do then? Right? So again, these are the real, like, the things that matter. Plus, Sue, look at all the changes you've made in your business and, all the significant, improvements. Wouldn't it be nice
Yeah,
to
I'm
see
looking
how,
forward to understanding the KPIs just that
right,
little bit more stronger.
right. So, and again, when you get to the master level is where you can run an entire business, but like, again, I'm not exaggerating. This is the same dashboard I have in my own business that I look at daily. This is the top level. I can see if I have a problem in any other department based on these numbers. All right. And it's real time. It's coming in right
I'm
at me,
such a
right?
fan.
So, and you have the same kind of system as well. And like, it's just a matter of the discipline of going in and making sure, hey, I don't have that. And that prevents those reactive emotional decisions or that panic or, again, it's right in front of you if you look, properly.
It really takes you from like questioning to control.
That's right.
Like
And when
it's
we,
100%. And that's just such a calming thing.
to-
Like
totally,
that's what I'm looking forward to.
totally. So the thing that I've noticed about when big things happen, all right, is that we have to find ourselves in a place of present. Okay. Only time anything beneficial and you can think about back in your life when the best things have occurred. All right. It's when we're in the state of present. All right. Nothing else good occurs in the state of anxiety. Right. If we're in anxiety, like again, nothing new. We're surviving. All right. Especially as contractors, I would say most of them are just in that survival mode every single day. That's why they don't focus on these things. They see the benefit, but they can't get themselves, focused enough to actually implement something. They can't take action. Therefore, they just keep repeating over and over the same things, right? Where this benefits them is that, when we take that first step and we make that change, all right, if you can't see it and you can't measure it, the chances of you regressing back to your old habit is very high, right? We can't implement new habits, and that's what this is all about, right? That's what it gets you from point A to point B. If you don't take action and you don't implement, all right, because you're overwhelmed by all the things that are going on. I mean, that is the definition of slavery and being stuck, right? So, I mean, again, is it worth your time to invest in even the simple things, right? So if you're just starting out, doesn't have to be fancy dashboards, doesn't have to be this stuff. In fact, don't try this. Okay? Start with the simple stuff. Job costing, knowing your number, picking your number, and you can, no word of a lie, use one spreadsheet to run your whole business. All right? I did it for years. I know it's not as sexy. It's definitely not something that you need to pay a lot of money for. If you want any of our job cost training, feel free to reach out as well. We'll give that to you. Again, we don't want to gate information, but as you conquer that and as you start to hold yourself accountable to profit, right, you will see everything around you change, all right, including customers, the type of guys you attract, the amount of money in your bank account, like everything changes with understanding that first aha moment, right? And then we can think about all the other things. Then we can apply the same principle, same thing, and eventually you get yourself to a place where you no longer have to listen to what anybody says in your business. And that's a powerful place to be. Okay. I don't listen, don't tell anybody. I don't listen to what anybody says to me. They can tell me whatever they want. Okay. I'll shake my head, I'll be polite, but there's only one place that matters to me, and it's right here. All right. There is no bullshit. I know about things
Mhm.
happening 90 days before they happen. All right. And I mean, again, I lead my team well. I think I give good support and a good coach. All right. But it's all because, again, I could see the patterns. I can see things occurring before they even try it. The sales reps, like, again, ever manage a sales rep? You'll know you can't manage a sales rep. You can only put them in an environment where they manage themselves. All right. And the only way they're going to manage themselves is by holding them accountable to their numbers, their closing ratios, like what you're seeing here, right? Holding them accountable so they're being hard on themselves. You don't have to be, right? Otherwise, if you try to manage a salesperson and micromanage them, your sales will go down, right? Every time. And that person's going to turn over for you very quickly because that's just not the way it works,
The thrill of the chase has left the building.
right? So
I
again,
want to
technicians,
gamify a lot of our like, sorry,
yep,
I want to turn it into a fun moment. Well, fun for me.
sure,
I hope the guys are on board too, but I'd be like, okay, we got this many jobs this week done. Let's try for this many more. Or
right.
I don't know how I want to do the measurables yet, but to learn and understand this stronger will help me get those measurables so that I can make fun playing competitive moments in our day to day.
So it's a funny thing, okay? And I'll share this personal thing with me. When you move your team, to, looking at numbers and understanding how they have impact on the business. Okay. And a lot of people, for some reason, have a weird connection with like, oh my God, if they see how much I'm making, or oh my God, if they see the convert, like that's false. Okay. If you want a team of leaders, okay, and you want a team that's going to grow your business while you're not there, all right, and you want to have impact in the world and around you, you best be able to show people the score. That is your job, all right? As the owner of the company, all right, your ultimate job, all right, besides earning a profit for the shareholders, all right, is to own the rules to the game in the arena it's played in. Okay. So if you want to have a business that works without you, you had best be developing these kind of systems that will allow you, all right, to have other people play ferociously the game that you've set up. Okay. And if they don't have a clear view of how they impact or how they contribute, all right, it's the same thing as us going out saying, hey, we're going to go play a professional level of football, all right, but we're not going to have a scoreboard, no referees, we're not going to wear equipment. And you know what? You can play on either side of the team. Is that a game of football anymore? Are we playing professional? Like, are you a top level team at that rate? Absolutely not. Right? You're wasting your time with your buddies. Right? And I'd say most of us treat our business that way. All right? That is all that we could describe it as. Think about all the energy, all the work, all the passion that you drain into this business day in, day out. All right. And at the end of the day, you're a beer league level team, right? Without this, because nobody else gets or no one else can contribute to it. You can't bring in leaders. You can't attract leaders. You can't retain, A players because you're not capable of keeping score. And chances are, even when things are going well, you will make bad decisions in that situation because you don't see the full picture, right? And again, over and over and over again, do I see it? This is what we help clients, relieve themselves of. And it's not me telling you, not me coaching you. It's me showing you and having you make the decision the same way I want you to show your team and have them make good decisions and see the impact, right? It's completely contagious, right?
So, so I can book a meeting with you and you can help me choose which metrics and which ones are
Mhm.
priorities and build a
Oh,
dashboard in the CRM that'll help
yeah,
me have
absolutely.
a very clear picture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, this
Okay.
is my zone of genius, right? So like I've been able to do it in many different businesses, many different settings. And again, we have a great team here that contributes to this happening. So if you want to take it to that level, which Sue, you're already well on your way, so we'll be there very shortly. But
I'm
again, it's
excited. I've applied everything you and I've watched us evolve, and I'm
right.
so excited. So
Yeah.
I realize I look and sound green, but like in a year we've evolved so much, and
Right.
just I looked at our numbers and I wasn't intimidated by it, and I was like,
Right.
oh shoot, we hit that baby goal. I want the
Right.
bigger one still,
Hmm.
and I think I still can. So I really feel like this learning is like the next piece that I just one piece at a time.
Right. Well, and that's just it,
So I'm
right?
gonna get that call booked with you.
Yeah, take imperfect action, right? So again, when you start out, you have no choice but to work sort of blindly, and a lot of us don't come in with that financial background of how to run our business, and that's okay. You know what? The fact that you're here,
I
you're on
was
the
so
call.
scared of it.
Yeah, yeah,
I
and
sucked so bad, but not
it's
anymore. It's
right.
still learning.
Right. So, and I talk to lots of guys that say that, hey, I'm not the accountant, I'm not the bookkeeper, I don't get my numbers, and that's not good enough, right? If you don't find somebody who does, have them teach you how to see those things because it doesn't once it's set up and once you have it implemented in your business, all right, it sets you up to actually do the thing that gives you energy. Right. So if you love doing sales, you love doing marketing, if you could see yourself just if I just could do this one thing, or hell, if you wanted to stay on the tools for the rest of your days, I don't care what it is, right? Whatever gives you energy is the thing that you should be doing, right? Don't let anyone tell you any differently. But most of us get wrapped up in things we don't understand, we don't like, we don't want to know. Like that's where you need to be responsible. If you are in this game to win and you want to run a professional level, company, not one that's going to be, gone in the next 2, 3 years, or that's turning over constantly like most companies are. All right. If you want to provide, security for you and your family, like then you best damn invest in being a little uncomfortable and working with the right people, getting the right things so that you can see things clearly. That should be all of our goal, right? and continuously forming that habit of looking at those things, not avoiding them, all right? Because the only way you can responsibly navigate any company, all right, is exactly what I'm showing you here, right? And it goes to every department. Everything can be measured, everything, all right?
I
So,
do like the transferableness of the things that we've been learning because it's
yeah,
helped me. Like I struggled in the beginning with item A. And
hmm,
then when I did item B, I was like, oh, this feels like item A, but it applies to item B.
right,
Well, now that we're at like J and F and all those moments, I'm like, I know what I'm doing. I just gotta apply the process. It's
right,
been nice to just breathe because you're not reinventing the wheel. You're just
right.
making sense of the
Yeah.
process.
Well, and again, the way we try and do things here and where we're trying to help, and hopefully you notice it, is that, it's not about me telling you need to do all of these things. It's really about picking a play where we're going to focus on the outcome, right? That allows you to take small steps. And hey, you know what? Some of them are going to work out, some are not, but the infrastructure is still being built, right? It's still, and you're going to have, and this is why I do this, to be honest with you, is even with Eli and all that, like you have these aha moments where it just clicks and you're like, now like everything just starts, flooding in. It's not immediate, right? Like it can't be every day, but like you stay disciplined, keep showing up, keep doing the little things. It all comes together at once. And then boom, you're at level 2 now, right? And again, that's what I am, absolutely addicted to here, and seeing, guys really get out of that mindset of being stuck, and the hopelessness, and being overwhelmed all the time, and not spending time with their families. Like that's, I've been there. I've lived through that, right? I know what it's like, and I don't want anyone to have to go through it, because we work hard in our businesses. Like again, I remember 70, 80-hour weeks. Like I know what everyone's experiencing, and it doesn't have to be that way, right? And if we can teach a few people to take these actions, and few people have the courage to push themselves outside of that comfort zone, all right, there isn't much competition. You got to understand, 90% of companies are running around, even the big ones you think are successful, they don't know these things. They're out there just hard work and motivation, and it shows, right? So again, get away from that, and when you can get disciplined, you can get focused, your team will follow you, all right? The right people will
They
be attracted
respond
to you.
differently.
Yep, absolutely.
Like
And
I
again,
love the harmony we have going on, the mutual respect that everyone has. Like
yep,
we, and I'm knocking on wood, but I don't need to. Like genuine, clear communication. Everyone's respectful. Everyone understands what they bring to the table. Everyone helps serve each other at the table. I'm so appreciative of the teamwork that we have. It's just
yep,
night and day. I love it. Like this is such a place of thriving right now.
hmm,
So, um, like I got no words
awesome,
for how exciting it is because we're just producing now. There's
right.
no more of the nonsense. You're just literally producing, evolving, growing, thriving.
It's
Repeat,
amazing what
repeat,
happens when you
repeat.
start to remove anxiety, right? Because anxiety forces us to look into the future of something that's not even happened yet and be worried about it. All right. I would say the majority of the population is in a constant state of anxiety. And it shows, right? Like look at employees, look at staff. When you break that and you feel grounded and at a place of, being present, right? Everything, there's not a limit to what you can do, right? And again, that's what it's all like. That is the secret that I've discovered. That is how you become successful consistently, right? As long as you're focusing on keeping yourself present, removing the things that are a distraction, removing the things that are causing anxiety, and being honest with yourself, right? I mean, some of us, we shouldn't be contractors. You're some that I encounter that will never be successful at their business. And it's usually always the same thing. It comes down to that willingness to be uncomfortable, willingness to grow, willingness to put themselves in a vulnerable position to get to the next place, right? Because guys, if it were easy, everyone would do it, right? If there was a quick fix, quick like pill like that's being pushed, some guru out there, if it was a get rich quick overnight, everybody would do it. There's a reason they don't, right? So again, invest in the process, invest in small, things that lead to better habits, and you're gonna get yourself out of those positions. You're gonna understand it. All right, guys, appreciate you hanging out today, and we'll chat with you soon. Again, if you want any help on this stuff, feel free to reach out to us. Look forward to chatting to some of you soon.